Aw, why are you crying? What's wrong? Tell me. It's gonna be okay. Oh no, you live in Illinois? Aw, maybe it won't be okay. Sorry. If you haven't heard the news, Illinois is kind of a sinking ship. A lot of people are leaving the state. In fact, more people left Illinois than any other state in the decade. Last year alone, 51,029 people left the land of Lincoln, meaning 0.4% of folks skipped town. Many moved to nearby Indiana, yuck, Wisconsin, Missouri, and even into the southern states. Every 10 minutes, somebody leaves this state for good. By the end of this video, we're going to see another Illinois goodbye. Why? For many reasons I'll talk about, but generally, people are tired of the taxes and the government mismanagement. But it's also the cold and the gloom and the lack of jobs and the crime. Right now, Illinois is the 6th most popular state, but soon, Ohio's going to pass Illinois for number of people. Now, the places that we're going to talk about all fit into the sucky category. It's places in Illinois that are struggling and where communities have a lot of people leaving. So, join me as we go through the worst places in Illinois where you could possibly live. We begin our first stop in the worst places to live in Illinois in Kankakee, a little city of 26,000 people about a half hour south of the Chicago metro area along I-57. A few years ago, Places Rated Almanac ranked Kankakee as the 354th best place to live in the country out of 354 places. David Letterman heard about that and made fun of the place, saying Kankakee put the ill in Illinois and the annoy in Illinois. He also said, "You'll come for our payphone, but you'll stay because your car's been stolen." But back in 1997, Reader's Digest said this was one of the best places to live. So what happened? Like many other cities we're going to talk about, it was a loss of factory jobs beginning in the late 70s. Even the Bears left from nearby Bourbonnais, where they had held training camp for like ever. Today, 1 in 5 homes here is a single woman with kids and no father present. It's also the 9th most violent place in the state too, because gangs are coming down here from Chicago's south side. It's also a relatively poor place. Kankakee ranks 16th for poverty, where 30% of the community gets food stamps. Link. Our next worst place to live in Illinois is Peoria. Peoria. The P. They used to call this the Blood Shack because of all the shootings. Residents say there's an overwhelmingly depressing vibe throughout the 8th biggest city in the state. The population here is plummeting though. They lose about 500 people a year here, probably moving to Dunlap. Again, this was once, too, a vibrant community that was on lists for being a great place to live and work, but today, locals use words like dirty and depressing and scary. Somebody else said it reminds them of a toilet that needs flushing. Hey, that's mean. Don't laugh, Pekin. You're not much better. Peoria's in the top 15 for crime. The east side's bad. The south end's bad. Supposedly, folks find guns stashed in bushes down there. Peoria's a blue-collar manufacturing town that has lost plenty of jobs. Caterpillar's still a big deal here, but it moved its headquarters to Deerfield. Plus, the Steak and Shakes in Peoria take forever to get your damn food. At least that's the word on the street. Even the New York Times took note, saying that this was a city that once guided a nation, but is now going downhill fast. The riots here in May of 2020 really effed this place up. Rioters even broke the locks on the Peoria City Zoo and let the damn donkeys out. What's going on in Peoria? On a positive note, downtown Peoria has been gentrified, and it's much nicer now than it was 10 years ago. And the economy here doesn't seem depressingly dismal. There's still lots to be done, but Peoria is trying really hard. Next up, we come to Danville, an aging community on the state's eastern border with Indiana. To get there, you take Route 1, due south from Chicago. That's what all the ghetto people do on a daily basis. Danville's emblematic of what's gone wrong with smallish Illinois communities. Once a super great place to live and raise kids, it's like that no longer. People are carjacked at gas stations. Drug users break into homes and are caught red-handed and then walk away without getting in trouble. And when Popeyes opened here, the place got robbed the first 2 days it was open. A lot of the problem is at Fair Oaks, a housing project on the city's east side. Here, you have link card recipients, former Chicago thugs, and people hiding from the cops to stake a claim, deal, shoot each other, and then go out into the actual only nice parts of Danville and steal and rob there. Custard Cup got robbed. So far, Royal Donut has not. I mean, if you're gonna rob a place that makes the best damn cookies ever, you have some real problems, mister. Former corporation stalwarts like GE, ESCO, GM, and the railroads left here ages ago. Whatever middle class is left is fleeing for the hills and places like Bismarck. It's pretty sad, actually. They're building a casino here at some point. You know that's not going to make things better. But their mayor's singing songs on Facebook, so that's fabulous. Decatur, Danville's rival. This place is even worse than Danville. It's twice as big as Danville, and it has twice as many rundown hoods and thieves. No wonder Decatur was ranked as the 15th fastest shrinking large city in America. They've lost a staggering 7% of their population over the last 10 years. Back in 1980, there were about 100,000 people here. So if you're going to point a finger at Illinois' population decline, look no further than Decatur. This place stinks, and not just because of the crime and the garbage. It's from the crops being processed by companies like ADM. But the News Gazette says that smell is money. So if you live there, you're inhaling your bright future, I guess. Crime-wise, it ain't Chicago level. It's only the 36th most violent city in the state. But you still have a 1 in 28 chance of being the victim of a crime every year if you live here. I mean, somebody just got shot and killed in a liquor store here last week. And people speculate that a lot of crimes aren't reported, especially by the local media. Good for you, WCIA. It's pretty poor here, and only 25 other cities in Illinois have more people on Link. On a positive note, Decatur folks do nice things, I guess. Like they raised money to send Girl Scout cookies overseas, and they organized more than 1 million pounds of food to give to their local food pantries. Their website, Limitless Decatur, promotes other things they're doing to fix this place. Good. Keep it up, Decatur.
Hey, yo. This video is brought to you in part by Clippers
on Martin Luther King Boulevard in Chicago.
Come on and get your hair done. They do it tight and right. That's Clippers on MLK. G.
Do you like my new hair did?
Oh, snap, Mappy. That looks dope. Did you get that at Clippers?
I sure did. Clippers is fresh. Mention Mappy and get a free do-rag.
I did mention you, Mappy, and I got a free do-rag too. Clippers is dope. We have a tie, folks. Chicago Heights and Ford Heights. They're both Chicago suburbs. They both suck. In Chicago Heights, the unemployment rate is supposedly only 13%, but for the most part, it's underreported because so many people here aren't even looking for work. This is the 10th most violent place in the whole state, where folks get gatted for drug deals gone wrong or regular people get capped for getting in the way of crimes. Chicago Heights is in the top 100 of all U.S. cities for crime. Right next door is Ford Heights, aka East Chicago Heights. This too is a terrible place currently. This is considered a little village of 2,700 people. It's basically one big ghetto, poverty-stricken link farm. It's one of the poorest and most crime-ridden suburbs in all of America. The population here has gone down by 20% in the last decade, which means 20% less ghetto people. Maybe that's a good thing. Where are they going? Who knows? Gary, other neighborhoods, Danville, Decatur, all over. They don't really stay put for very long. Next door is Harvey, even closer to downtown Chicago. People in Maywood are like, Harvey sucks. There's 24,000 people in this sad little ghetto hood, and people are leaving every week. Like every other city on this list, it's high levels of joblessness and poverty. 1 in 4 people here doesn't work, and 4 in 10 people in Harvey is so broke, they qualify for the worst poverty assistance available. It's also in the top 10 for crime too. I mean, you can buy a home here for $14,000. This is only 20 miles from downtown, if that puts things into perspective as to how bad things are in Harvey. The noise level is medium, supposedly. I don't think they make guns, though, that shoot only a little bit loud. You can buy a whole liquor store here for $320,000, although I'm sure it'll get looted soon, so you might want to stay away from that dump. Niche says many people in Harvey tend to be liberal. Yeah, you think? Anyways, Harvey's a total dive. It's pretty much South Chicago that's not technically South Chicago. Rockford. This one won't cause any consternation. This large city of 145,000 people is up along I-39 on your way into some of Wisconsin's worst communities. The population here has diminished at a rapid rate too. It's down by 5% in the last 10 years. If you do the math, that means at this rate in 200 years, there will be nobody left here, which might not be such a bad thing. This is the third most violent place in the state, fella, especially anything on the west side of the river. This guy says his uncle got stabbed on the west side 7 times and even shot. Cab drivers get stabbed here. If you don't hear gunshots by midnight, you know something went down. It's the kind of place that opposing middle schools will mysteriously scratch their basketball games to the last minute and just not come, and that is just so sad. The schools are struggling because of budget cuts. A lot of the good teachers are leaving for other states. This is the third largest city in the state, so the kids are going to need somebody to babysit them all day long. And 70% of black men under the age of 30 don't have a job. 70%, people! Most run the streets and wind up in jail. It's an old Rust Belt town, so there's plenty of industrial fossils everywhere and boarded up homes. Really sad, actually. Way down at the intersection of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers is Cairo, Illinois. It's practically in Missouri or in Kentucky, so you may not have even heard of the place. There's only 2,000 people here, and it's plummeting big time. Anyways, this little city is literally dying. One day it won't even be a place. 20% of the people who live here were in housing projects, but then they told everybody they had to leave. These housing projects were roach and bug infested, and there was no budget to fix them, so they just shut them down. Even Ben Carson, the Secretary for Housing and Urban Development, talked about it. Apparently, the former mayor here and other community leaders really screwed things up, and they mismanaged and misspent public housing dollars. That's so Illinois, crime and mismanagement. There was a flood here in 2011. Riots here effed the place up in the 60s. The problem really accelerated when they built bridges over both of these rivers and bypassed this community completely. Needless to say, there's no jobs here. It's almost third world looking. But Shemwell's BBQ might be the best BBQ in southern Illinois. At least there's that. East St. Louis is clearly on this list. It's a St. Louis suburb. You've heard of it if you live in Illinois. It was once 83,000 people. Now it's a third of that size and dropping by the month. This is the second poorest place in the state and the fifth most violent, although it had the highest murder rate per capita in the nation at one point, and overall, a crime rate 18 times higher than the rest of the country. Crime used to be worse here, but as you can see, lots of the really bad areas were just knocked to the ground. So there's less rundown areas in which to commit crimes these days. This was once an all-American community, and it began its decline in the early 70s when the middle class moved out, and the resulting failed tax base meant basic city services like fire and police had trouble operating. A lot of the land outside of the city remains undeveloped, bypassed by folks who chose more affluent suburban areas. What's left in city limits proper are widely scattered inner city neighborhoods, truck stops, adult venues, liquor stores, and other blighted sections of town. Most folks make about $25,000 a year on average. And where's our worst place to live in Illinois? Chicago! The rest of Illinois is like, hell yeah! Some parts of Chicago are pleasant, though overpriced, but the south side is infamously pitiful. It's places like Inglewood, Austin, Roseland, Chicagoland, Fuller Park, Gage Park, Greater Grand Crossing, West Garfield Park, Auburn Gresham, Chatham. It's gangs, shootings, poverty. You already know that. The worst thing about Chicago, though, is how it literally sucks the life out of the rest of the state. People downstate and the dying communities are paying through their noses to support the Chicago metro area, which has 8 million of the state's 12 million residents. Much of Illinois hates Chicago, which wields too much power. I mean, in 2010, Pat Quinn was elected governor despite winning only 4 of this state's 102 counties. One of them was clearly Cook County. And then the electors send all their ghetto people south to screw up all the smaller communities that paid them all the money. Chicago's corrupt and dangerous and crowded, and people and companies are leaving. The outward migration here is actually accelerating. Even Milwaukee is deemed as a better place to live, and that's saying something. There's a lot of reasons it sucks here. If you live anywhere outside of Chicago, you can rattle off many of them yourself. But this guy thinks he's going to save the day. That's J.B. Pritzker as Jon Snow. That took a lot of work to do that. Anyways, sadly, these were the worst places in Illinois that are the worst to live in, and frankly, they're all getting worse. On average, most people in these communities live a modest life, and the ones who remain are taxed dry and scared of being shot at. They watch their communities trudge on, but they know they won't soon be improved. Many people in these cities are just satisfied enough to not have the time, energy, or heart to figure out if they should leave themselves. Now, there's a lot of other places we could have talked about, like Heron and Waukegan and Sauk Village and places like Murfreesboro and even Tilton. If you live in any of those places, your community's struggling too. And if you live in the places that we talked about, you know that your community is struggling. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? Because a lot of these places used to be good and they have great people in them, but everybody's just comfortable and just lets things go. Well, if you sit around long enough, a lot of these places in Illinois aren't going to be places anymore.
Take me to a place in time Well, there's a reason for the rhyme. I wanna feel like I've become something more than things that just begun. I've traveled on a broken road in search of a better home. Traveling on this broken road, I've lost more than I could afford. Make believe I'm a small child. Pure innocence will make things mild, at least for a while. I've traveled on a broken road in search of a better home. I've traveled on a broken road in search of, in search of, in search of. I'm dreaming of a day when the whole world fades to gray. It'll be a simpler time when there's a reason for the rhyme. I've traveled on a broken road in search of a better home.
Now, after all those negative things we talked about, it's time we change the vibe. Here's a picture of a little old lady and her dog. There's nothing more innocent in this world than a little old lady and her dog. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great! You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.